Questions? Yeah, any questions? Go ahead.
Tom Bartley, I'm an independent. When you look at all these fuels, and the nature of this was transportation fuels, and we spend about 60 to 70% of our energy in transportation. The question that comes to my mind is, what kind of transportation? We are right now locked into freeways, concrete, rebar, and bridges. And if you look at, even on the bus rapid transit side, you might hear something called a BRT, a bus rapid transit. In the transit agencies, some of the largest components of the cost are the labor cost. Try to get as many passengers per driver as you can to cut down the overall operational cost. Well, my question is, do we want to think big, or what could be disruptive perhaps if we think small? Because one of the things that's happening in vehicles is all these sensors to where the vehicles can make better decisions than the drivers. And if you consider your study and you consider fuels, what's some of the trade-offs between thinking big, changing your infrastructure to get more people per vehicle, say, or thinking small with self-guided vehicles, like a new term that's being coined now is, instead of bus rapid transit, personal rapid transit. Things like road trains and individual vehicles that are self-guided.
Yeah. The title of the study is Future Transportation Fuel Study, to talk about the fuels portfolio, but if you saw in the scope, it includes all the modalities, to consider all the modalities. So some of the things you brought up, like changes that can be made to the vehicle system, will be considered. They are technology breakthroughs that could affect both the efficiency of the engine or affect the use of the transportation mode, or do some mode switching. So those are all they're all within the context of the scope. What we don't get into is anything that forces modality switching that's not from the technology base. We certainly will consider it if we can't get to what we consider desirable commercial volumes. We could consider the effect of modality switching, but that's sort of last resort. So the answer is we are at that scope, I think, that you're discussing.
Okay. Maybe I missed it at the beginning, but what is the deadline for delivering the report?
The end of this year. Okay. So we are in the consolidation phase at this point and the integration phase. That gives us enough time to be able to vet the report and finish it by the end of the year.
Mike Ramsey, the Wall Street Journal. I guess since the industry is involved in this, when the recommendations are come out, is this going to serve as a roadmap of what the consensus is from a lot of the oil industry in terms of bets for future technology? I mean, is it going to come out and say, we think this is the way it's going, and that's how they're going to
yeah, I would say,
resources?
Yeah, I'll answer. First of all, for antitrust reasons, no, it will not do that. It will not be a consolidated opinion industry. Second, if you notice, the distribution and the focus is really looking at supply chains and looking at barriers and looking at technology breakthroughs and discussing the probability of the breakthroughs. So there can't be an answer because you'll be discussing probabilities. And so at its heart, it's how fast do you think technology will allow these things or enable these things to happen. And so we will discuss the impact of the direction certain investments will take you. But again, it won't come out with a definitive answer, and was not expected to do that. In fact, it's not. You can tell from the scope. There's no expectation of that. Okay.
John Hanson from Toyota, right here.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure that when you said that you have spirited discussions is an understatement with a diverse group like this. And just from a process standpoint, how do you resolve impasses, which I'm sure there are many?
Yeah. Well, as I said, this is a consensus-based study, so we're not expecting unanimous agreement. And so as we find a majority opinion, if we find that we get a majority and a minority opinion, we will discuss both, the pros and cons of both. And that's the heart of this study, is to really present to the readers what are the issues that are swirling around. And we may say that there's a larger majority that believes it'll go in direction A, but there's also equally good arguments that say we might go B. And so we handle it that way. And as a result, we don't get deadlocked for that reason. But we do find that because we are technology-based, And we have a broad, we have specialists that as we find areas we disagree and we start digging into the research, the reports, we tend to get more aligned. But we very seldom are in, unanimous agreement. It's just not part of the study. Yes. Okay.
This is Dennis Simonitis, Road and Track. Who is the ultimate audience for the report?
We talk about that a lot. It is requested by the Secretary of Energy, and by definition, it is his report. But because it's offered to the public, and you see our outreach, we expect that it'll be read with great interest by the NGOs, by the technical community, by industry, and it will get used in many different ways. And as we start to struggle with the executive summary, that discussion will heat up. But I just see it a very broad base.
And how would the likes of us have access to it?
It will be made available to the public for free. You can download it off the internet when it's released. That's it. And you can participate in the NGO outreaches if you would like. So you can get, you can follow it. Anyway. Yes.
Jorge Geklin, Automundo. Has this been done before in the history of the world or the country or anywhere?
You will find that these questions are often asked of many studies, and in fact, there are studies that have gone before us that have addressed this question. There are studies that will come after that will address the question. And so you ask the question, what's unique about this study? Well, first of all, it is a unique time. We're building on what went before. We will move the ball forward a little bit more, and then other studies will take it forward. The second piece of it is the fact that we went towards a more industry base to give a different perspective, so a triangulation upon, let's say, more academic studies. And then the third one is the breadth of this study, looking across all the transportation modes and then looking across supply, infrastructure, and demand. This is unusual. So it's unusual, but I would never say any of these studies is truly unique. They're just part of a spectrum of activities that take everybody forward.
Linda, I know from personal discussions with the people from Toyota that are involved in this project that it's nearly a full-time job.
Yes.
I mean, essentially, it's a dedicated position that there's little time to do much else. I know you've got a deadline for the report. It would seem natural and almost, you would assume, that perhaps there would be a second phase to this, that perhaps the study would come out and there would be see the need to continue it or bring it into another phase. Is that possible? And do you think because of how consuming the time is that it would require new people to come in for that?
Yeah, I think the analogy of it, you're moving the ball forward and then someone picks it up afterwards is probably appropriate. We can't answer every question. We need to converge and focus on what we think are the most relevant questions for us to answer today in this time frame, but describe and educate and tee up the questions that we could not address for the next study. And then that allows the Secretary to consider what does he think needs to go beyond what we've done. And so I would expect that to happen. Also, as you said, it is nearly a full-time job for quite a number of us, although none of us have given up our day jobs. It is a struggle, and so you only can put in so much time, and then the next team needs to come forward. And so we're very much looking at ourselves as a continuum. We'll do what we can to answer the questions that are appropriate for us to answer today the best we can, and then set the stage up for the next study, or whether it be an NPC study or a National Academy study or whomever decides to pick it up. So we are specifying our assumptions, we are being clear about our analysis so that those that come after us can understand why we came to the findings that we came to and be able to reconstruct it.
Alan Owensman from Bloomberg News. Maybe you touched on this, and just to maybe make the point a little clearer, how would this study really be different than what National Academies has been doing over the past few years? Is this more grounded from the industry's perspective? Is it more real world in that sense?
I would say that timing, we're doing this study now, so we're building on the past. I'd say second, The large number of industry participants will certainly give another perspective. I think the question that we were asked will be a variation of things that have been asked before, things asked in the future. And so again, it's like a triangulation. Our study will fit in the satellite of other studies and help allow the readers to be able to develop their own opinions about which way they think things are going to go. But I would say the most noteworthy to me, personally, is the large number. We were able to convince and arm twist a large number of industries to participate, and the breadth of the participation. I mean, getting Walmart and FedEx and others of that nature into a fuels transportation study, I think is different.
Linda, one other thing about the subject matter that you consider, how much, and I noticed there was, it seems that there was some, but how focused is the group or a subgroup on ITS, on intelligent transport?
That's a topic that gets discussed within the subgroups, and it's up to the subgroups to decide how relevant that is to move us forward to these alternative fuels and to achieve the economic competitiveness or the environment or the energy security aspect. So it is discussed. And in fact, I don't think it comes out in the next talk on electric, but I know that they discuss that very actively.
Has there been any feedback from from the department with regard to its interest and in funding ITS?
That's not a conversation that we have with the department. I am sure they will use this study to inform their discussions on that, but that's not an active discussion that we're having as part of this study.
Kathleen Neal, ENN, are you able to tell us what are your sources of funding for this study?
Oh, the study, the NPC, as I said, the NPC is actually funded by the member companies. It is not funded by the Department of Energy. Is that the question that you were asking? Yes. And so as a result, that creates a certain amount of independence that despite the fact that the role of the NBC is to advise the Secretary of Energy, it is not, the Department of Energy is not the source of the funds to conduct the study or of the staff of the NPC. It's kind of a unique situation which allows a certain amount of independence in thought. And I'll just point out the membership is more diverse than oil companies. In some cases, it's unfortunate that the title, my opinion, I'm not an employee of the National Petroleum Council, but it's somewhat unfortunate. But if you look at the membership of the NPC, you will see Caterpillar is a member. It's not just oil and gas companies, so it's a very diverse membership. It is really members who are very interested in discussing energy sources with the Secretary. Okay, thank you.